There are thoughts that come and go, like gentle waves crashing on the sand. But there are those who insist on staying, repeating themselves like an incessant echo in the mind. Have you ever wondered why you can't stop thinking about someone? No matter the time that passes, the distance created or the efforts to divert attention, that person is still there, present in your memory, in your dreams, in the most unexpected moments of the day. What causes certain faces, certain voices, and certain memories to be engraved so deeply within us? Is it just a matter of emotion, or is there something beyond what we can understand? Science tells us that our brains are shaped by intense emotional associations and connections. Psychologically, we focus our attention on what marked us, what left us with unanswered questions or unresolved emotions. But what if this insistence of the mind is not just a chemical phenomenon? What if there is something bigger behind this? Many spiritual traditions believe that some souls are intertwined beyond time and space, that certain encounters are not mere coincidences, but part of a greater plan, invisible bonds that transcend lives, energies that intertwine and continue echoing until their purpose is understood. Perhaps the answer lies not just in the mind, but in the soul. On this path of self-discovery, we'll explore 6 reasons why you might be stuck in this cycle of thinking. In the end, perhaps you will understand that this fixation is not a burden, but a calling. And now, let's go to the first reason, the soul connection. What happens when 2 energies vibrate at the same frequency? The first reason you can't stop thinking about someone is simple but profound. You share a soul connection. Not all relationships are superficial or casual. Some people come into our lives with such a strong impact that they seem to be linked to us in an inexplicable way. Have you ever felt like you knew someone before you even exchanged words, as if that person were familiar, even though they were a stranger? This is the effect of a soul connection. The energy between you vibrates at the same frequency. It is as if their souls recognize each other beyond time and space. These connections are not random. They carry deep meanings, teachings, and often challenges. When that call happens, it's almost impossible to ignore. Even if life separates them, thoughts keep returning, as if something still needs to be understood or experienced. But what is the purpose of these connections? Why do some people mark us so deeply while others go unnoticed? If you feel like this connection isn't just a fluke, perhaps there's an even deeper explanation. You have a spiritual contract. Nothing in our life happens without a purpose. Some souls come into our path to teach, heal, awaken, or even challenge dormant parts within us. Before we were even born, according to some spiritual beliefs, we already established agreements with certain people, encounters that would shape our journey and accelerate our evolution. Have you ever met someone who changed your perspective, even if unexpectedly? Maybe it was an intense and brief relationship, or a bond that has persisted for years, but that seems to bring more questions than answers. These connections are not the result of chance. They are part of a bigger plan. Spiritual contracts do not mean that we are destined to be with someone forever, but rather that there is something we need to learn or resolve with that person. And as long as this lesson is not understood, its presence can continue to echo in our thoughts, like an open book whose last page has not yet been read. Sometimes these contracts involve love, growth, and mutual learning. Other times they bring challenges, pain, and separation. But even in the most difficult experiences, there is always a hidden purpose. So, the question that arises is, what happens when we leave something unfinished? Does the mind insist on someone because there is still something to be resolved? If a person continues to occupy your mind, it may be that there is something unresolved between you. Sometimes it's not the person themselves that holds us back, but rather the lack of closure, the lack of understanding, or the pain of an unfinished goodbye. The human mind has difficulty dealing with abrupt endings. Our brain searches for patterns, answers, and meanings. When a relationship ends unexpectedly or leaves issues unresolved, we enter a state of emotional and mental restlessness. This is why we often revisit past conversations, replay moments, and create alternative scenarios in our minds, all to try to find a resolution that never came. But it's not just about brain logic. Spiritually, unresolved energies continue to circulate within us. Repressed emotions, unspoken words, and unprocessed feelings create invisible bonds that keep us stuck in the past. And until this energy is released, we will continue to feel that person's presence, even if they are no longer physically next to us. So what to do? Making peace doesn't always mean meeting someone again or having a final conversation. Sometimes true healing happens within us. Forgiving, understanding, and accepting what was, without resisting what is, can be the way to free the mind from this obsession. But there is something even deeper than unresolved conflicts: energetic bonds. Are we stuck with someone because our energies are still connected? If you've ever tried to forget someone, moved on rationally, but that person still occupies your thoughts, it could be that your energies are still on. Every interaction we have with someone generates an exchange of energy. The more intense the connection, be it love, pain, or admiration, the stronger this bond becomes. In many spiritual traditions, these connections are believed to create energy cords, invisible threads that connect two people even at a distance. These cords can remain active even after a separation, keeping thoughts and emotions linked to the other. This explains why, sometimes, out of nowhere, you feel that person's presence. A thought arises, a memory resurfaces, and the heart responds. It's not just a memory, it is a real vibration, an echo of the energy that still exists between you. But these bonds are not unbreakable. When we become aware of them, we can choose to keep them, transform them, or cut them. Ritualizing detachment, whether through spiritual practices, meditation, or simply the conscious decision to release the other, can bring relief to the mind and soul. But what happens when that bond seems deeper than any other? When do we feel like there is something beyond the present connecting us to that person? Perhaps the answer lies in unresolved karma. Does this bond come from much earlier, from other lives? If, despite time and distance, that person still occupies your mind almost inevitably, it may be that you have unresolved karma. The concept of karma teaches us that every action generates a reaction and that our past interactions shape our present experiences. But what if this connection is older than you think? What if the intensity of this bond is not just the result of this life, but of something much greater? Many spiritual traditions believe that some souls meet again and again, life after life, to learn, heal, and evolve together. These connections can come in the form of deep loves, painful challenges, or unfinished relationships that leave marks that are impossible to ignore. When a cycle does not close in one existence, it can repeat itself in the next, bringing with it the feeling of déjà vu, instant recognition, and, of course, the persistence of thoughts about that person. But karma is not a sentence, but an invitation to transformation. If this person continues to be present in your mind, perhaps it is because there is something that needs to be understood and balanced. It could be forgiveness that was never granted, love that couldn't be fully experienced, or the need to learn to let go instead of clinging on. So ask yourself, what is this connection trying to teach you? What pattern are you repeating? What needs to be closed so that your soul can move on in peace? But not every insistent thought has to do with the past. Sometimes the mind clings to someone because we are deeply involved emotionally and physically. And that brings us to the last reason: The impact of love and passion. Are you simply in love? Perhaps the most obvious, and at the same time the most complex, reason why you can't stop thinking about someone is simply this: you are in love. Love, especially when intense and unresolved, can become an overwhelming force. It alters brain chemistry, activating areas responsible for reward, obsession, and desire. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter linked to pleasure and motivation, is released in large quantities, creating an addiction-like effect. This explains why, even without meaning to, your thoughts keep returning to that person. But this fixation doesn't just happen for biological reasons. Love is an experience that transcends the physical. It involves expectations, dreams, and even projections of what we want for ourselves. Often it is not the person themselves that captures us, but rather what they represent. Think about it. Are you stuck with the real human being or the idea you created about him? Are you in love with the connection you shared or the future you imagined with her? Sometimes what keeps us connected to someone is not true love, but the difficulty of accepting that not every story unfolds as we wish. But there is something liberating about this realization. Understanding that love is not a feeling that traps, but rather that expands, can help you transform this obsession into learning. Because loving, in its purest sense, does not mean possessing. It means allowing others and yourself to follow your paths lightly. And now that we've explored all the reasons, one last question remains. What to do with all this? How can we transform this experience into growth? Now that you understand the reasons why this person continues to occupy your thoughts, the big question arises: what to do about it? How can you transform this fixation into something that really contributes to your growth? The first thing you need to understand is that constantly thinking about someone doesn't mean that person should be part of your life. The mind and soul have subtle ways of teaching us lessons, and often, someone's insistent presence in our thoughts is a reflection of what needs to be healed within us. If the soul connection was so intense, perhaps the learning is not in the other person, but in what this experience awakened in you. What did this person make you realize about yourself? What parts of you were exposed? What pains came to the surface? Sometimes someone's true purpose in our life is not to stay, but to help us see something that we couldn't see on our own. If it was a spiritual contract, understand that these agreements are not eternal prisons. They exist to promote evolution, not to create dependence. If the lesson has already been learned, perhaps it is time to release that energy and move forward. If there is a need to make peace, remember, the peace you seek is not in others, it is within you. You don't need a final conversation or a reunion to heal. Sometimes silent forgiveness and inner acceptance are more powerful than any words spoken. If energetic ties are still active, it may be time to consciously cut them. You can do this through meditations, symbolic rituals, or even deciding with conviction that you are ready to move on. Energy follows intention. The more you strengthen the idea that you no longer need to carry this weight, the freer you become. If it is unresolved karma, view this experience as a learning opportunity. Ask yourself, what is this connection trying to teach me? Do you need to develop more self-love? Are you repeating past patterns? Are you insisting on something that should have already been left behind? Karma is not a punishment, but an invitation to change. What if it's just passion? Allow yourself to feel, but without imprisoning yourself. True love is never a prison. It must inspire, uplift, bring peace. If your connection with this person is causing you more pain than growth, it may be time to question whether it really is love, or just a reflection of something you still need to heal within yourself. In the end, The most important thing is not whether this person will leave your thoughts or not. The real learning is in understanding what this experience revealed about you. Because deep down, every connection we have with others is actually a reflection of the connection we have with ourselves. And now comes the last question. What can this experience teach you about who you really are? If you've made it this far, there's something that needs to be said. You're not like most people. Ordinary people live their lives without questioning the mysteries of the universe, without reflecting on the invisible connections that bind us to each other. But you feel it. You notice. You intuit that there is something greater behind every encounter, every insistent thought, every bond that cannot be explained by reason alone. This happens because you are a chosen one. The chosen are not those who simply accept what happens. They are those who seek to understand. They are those who feel the weight of deeper connections, who understand that there is something beyond the surface of each experience. You are not reliving these thoughts by chance. You are being called to see beyond, to awaken to a greater understanding of yourself and the purpose of these relationships. Perhaps you have felt that your life has always been marked by intense, inexplicable encounters, that certain people entered and left your story in an almost predestined way, leaving deep marks that never completely disappeared. This is neither weakness nor illusion. It is proof that your soul is in tune with something greater, with a truth that few have the courage to face. But being a chosen doesn't mean carrying a burden. On the contrary, it means understanding that every connection has a reason and that you have the power to decide how to allow those connections to impact your life. And here is the great truth. Persistent thoughts about someone are not a punishment, but a calling. A call to healing, for understanding, for liberation. Maybe this person is trapped in your mind because there is something about them that reflects parts of you that still need to be illuminated. Maybe she awakened something in you that was dormant, a truth about yourself that you had been avoiding facing. The chosen know that human connections are not mere chance encounters. They are mirrors. Each person who comes into your life reflects something about you. Your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, your deepest desires. What is this person reflecting to you? What is your mind trying to show you by dwelling on this memory so much? If you feel like you're stuck in this connection, ask yourself, is this experience uplifting me or imprisoning me? If the answer is imprisonment, then perhaps it is time to let go. Chosen ones don't stick to the past. They learn from him. They extract the necessary knowledge and move forward stronger and more aware than ever. But if this connection is teaching you something, if it is paving the way for a new understanding of who you are, then perhaps it is time to accept the calling. Dive deep into what this experience represents and come out of it more awake, more connected to your essence, more ready to live your mission. Because yes, you have a mission. Chosen ones don't live just to live. They have a purpose. And this purpose begins in the journey of self-knowledge, in understanding the lessons that life brings through each connection. Maybe you were chosen to feel so intensely because you are here to teach others about it, about love, about connection, about transformation. So look at this experience with new eyes. Instead of seeing it as an obsession, as a burden, see it as a portal to a deeper understanding of who you are, what you need to heal, and what you came into this world to do. The chosen are not stuck in the past. They draw on the wisdom he offers and move forward with confidence, ready for the next chapters of the journey. And now, the final question you must ask yourself: what did this experience awaken in you? And how will you use this awakening to transform your life?